All right, welcome back here to the Xfinity Sports Report, your Colorado High School connection. Brian Roth back with you, and happy to be joined in studio. Cory Lopez and Marty Cesario joining us. We're going to break down all the highlights. We've already seen them and preview the 3A, 4A, and 5A state championship games. But teams have already taken home the hardware in the sport of football. We want to recognize them as well right here on the Xfinity Sports Report. And let's take a look at those champions. How about in six-man, Rickery, Woodland. Always fun when those dual schools get to celebrate state championships. Eight-man, Caliche, their first state championship since 1994. They knock off Grenada. 1A, Paonia over Buena Vista. 21-7 back-to-back titles for the Eagles as they cap off that 13-0 season. And then in 2A, highlights that we've already seen. Brush over Kent Denver. And again, how about the goal line stand there for the Beat Tigers to brush their fifth state championship. Now let's move on to 3A. And again, we've already seen highlights of Pueblo East and Discovery Canyon. And boy, those Eagles, I know we've seen that program over the years, and Marty, it's fun to see Eagles making their first state championship game appearance.
And they're going to be playing at Dutch Clark Stadium in Pueblo, and what an amazing experience that has been for us over the years. But for a state title game, it should be insane, absolutely chaotic, and very colorful. What a great moment for the state of Colorado. Not surprised Coach Ramirez and his team is there. They have a sense of toughness in terms of preparation. Talk about bold predictions. We're monitoring via social media. He started the playoffs with a very beautiful graphic of all the teams and you know, some statements on there, and here he is now. They've advanced this far. He's on the final two teams, so we're waiting for that update, Coach Ramirez. You know, preparation, details, I think that's part of why they're here, and again, that Pueblo toughness they have. Congratulations to the Eagles.
Yeah, it's always fun when you see a head coach take ownership in every aspect of the program. Of course, they all do it and pay attention and focus what happens on the field and the kids, and make sure they have the best experience. But when you can extend that to those minor details that you talked about that Coach Ramirez and East does, it's certainly something that is worth noting. All right, they beat Discovery Canyon. That's a tough loss for the Thunder. Back-to-back years that the Eagles knocked them off. So Pueblo East to the state championship game for the first time. They'll take on a Rifle Bear team that knocked out Fort Morgan. And state championship games, Cory, nothing new to those Rifle Bears.
Yeah, 1 and 2 seeds are gone. You've got a 6 seed in there, but Rifle was there 2 years ago. They got beat by Silver Creek. Really kind of got steamrolled in that game by a great Silver Creek team who had lost the previous year. So that old adage is you kind of got to learn success through failure, particularly in the playoffs. I think works here. Rifle's a real good club. We see that they don't always have the best schedule because they're coming from the West Slope, but they played right through that. I mean, they look fantastic this year. So last state championship was in 2004, so there's a lot of tradition with this program as well. This could be their year. I think it's going to be fantastic to watch it down at Dutch Clark Stadium.
Yeah, as Marty said, and as Cory just said, Dutch Clark Stadium, 1 p.m. coming up on Saturday. Should be a great atmosphere. All right, to Class 4A, and the championship game is now set. It's going to be Longmont taking on Pine Creek. Let's start with the favorites, and Marty, Pine Creek, I think, once we started the season, maybe even after Pine Creek got done celebrating their state championship last year, we expected to see them right back at Sports Authority Field.
As we were all doing voting through the polls all throughout the course of the season, one stood up top. There was a nice group underneath, but one, and there's no argument there, it's Pine Creek in that program. They've earned the right to be there. Last year there was a nice story behind them. They ended up winning the state championship. They brought a lot with them to this season. They've got JoJo Doman, who's so multi-skilled. They've got Tommy Lazaro, who's a D1 product at quarterback, Avery Anderson, and don't forget the toughness up front along the line of scrimmage. I mean, they have a physicality that I don't think a lot of teams can match up with at the 4A level, and many on 5A wouldn't have that either.
Yeah, we were talking to some of our camera guys that have been down at the last few Pine Creek games, and I said, it's just kind of boring. They just dominate their opponents. And they did it to Windsor, and then they did it again to a Falcon team that took them to overtime back in late August. They're going to get Longmont. How about the story for Longmont, Cory? They opened up the season at 1-3, and yet here they are, state championship game.
Yeah, when we were doing those polls, the first 3-4 weeks of the season, Longmont wasn't even close to the top 10, anywhere near the top 10. They really turned it around. Clint Sigg, their quarterback, I think is the guy that really did it for them. He was turning the ball over, throwing interceptions. He's gone over 100 attempts now without throwing a pick. It's about managing the game. He lost his running back in Conlon Berger. He broke his wrist. Now, he's still playing a little bit on the defense, kind of got the club on that hand, but he can't run it. So it's really been put on Sig to kind of carry them this season. And something happened after they lost to Broomfield during the regular season because a light switch got turned on. They had a good game to beat Broomfield last week. That's a big rivalry for them. So they're riding a high coming in here, but I don't know. I mean, we've all seen Pine Creek. It's going to be a good game. Longmont's going to have to play almost perfect, though.
Yeah, and how about Longmont? They get revenge against Fort Collins a couple of weeks ago, knocked them off in the regular season, then they get revenge against Broomfield, another one of those teams that knocked them off in the regular season. Marty, does Longmont have a chance?
I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get it done. Now, they could, like you say, play a perfect ball game, always qualify teenagers playing football in a very large stadium for the NFL. So anything can happen. But I think it's going to be very difficult for them to get that done. At least the logistics are better. Remember, they were nationally recognized at the start of the season, where they had to make 2 trips from Longmont back and forth and up and down from Colorado Springs to get to the stadium. This time, hey, they know what's coming in front of them, no 3 in the morning trips. They know what to expect, and they know the team to expect to play.
Yeah, and Pine Creek has experience of playing in that stadium. Cory, how much does that make a difference?
That's a huge difference. The last time that Longmont won a state championship in 4A was 1991. So yes, the tradition is there in the Northern Conference or the Front Range Conference, wherever they bounced around over the last 20 years. They've been successful, but not this successful. A state championship game and playing at Sports Authority Field at Mile High. Bright Lights, big city. If you can get over that in the first 5 minutes of the game, I think you're okay. But we all know experience really counts a lot, particularly for, as Marty said, teenagers.
Yeah.
You got to get over it. You got to play the game.
It'll be the 3rd time in 4 years that Todd Miller has led Pine Creek to Sports Authority Field at Mile High. That game will be at 11 a.m. coming up on Saturday, again, right next door to our studios here in Denver. The game at 2:30. It'll feature Valor Christian and Cherry Creek for the 5A state championship. Let's start with Cherry Creek. And guys, very impressed with what they were able to go out and do against Ralston Valley on Friday night. And Marty, it was the Milo Hall show.
Yeah, it certainly was. And you have to give credit to the offensive line. Those guys up front really came and punched in and got their work done, because Milo Hall was met at the line of scrimmage quite often, and then, like you said, from there it was number 5 and all 5 getting things done, bouncing off of people, and by the time we got to the 3rd quarter, it's very fun to watch an athlete like that just establish that confidence. I mean, it wasn't a cocky way of going about his business. He just had that kind of confidence, like, I'm running this thing right now, and he certainly was. Ran for 276, big-time touchdowns. Cherry Creek came very prepared with a very designed plan of attack, and they executed very well and got it done in advance.
And, of course, a lot of the offensive guys are going to get the notoriety. DJ Luke, another one of those powerful backs. But what the defense, Cory, was able to do, and credit Tom Doherty and that defensive staff, they held a very good Ralston Valley offense, just 223 yards of offense. It's an offense that features Andrew Wingard, who is one of the most dynamic players in the state.
Yeah, and it's not all about stacking 7, 8 guys in the box to stop Wingard. I mean, it really is about, I think, as Marty said, go in with a good game plan. These guys have been here before. And when I say these guys, I'm talking about Dave Logan's staff. They were there at Mullen. Some of them were there at Chatfield, and some of them were there at A West too. He's got a couple of guys that he still has with them. That kind of experience helps when you get into the playoffs. They had a plan to stop Wingard and stop the rest of that offense. I saw Ralston Valley a couple of times this year. They're very dynamic. They can put some points up on the board, so that's very impressive. I'm glad you brought the defense up for Creek, because that's been a big part of their turnaround in that tough Centennial League.
Yeah, and Cherry Creek, first state championship appearance since 2008. Mike Brookhart, Kane Coulter leading them to Sports Authority Field that year, where they lost to Dave Logan and the Mullen Mustangs. All right, they're going to take on Valor, and it was Valor in Grandview on Saturday afternoon. And Marty, you were there. That was our game of the week. You were reporting on it for us, and we knew both those defenses were good, and it was a defensive game.
Absolutely. You know, you have to respect the Grandview's run game we have all year, and well, really for a decade and a half. There was some injury issues, it's fair to say. Chuk's hip, not perfect, but they've got other players on that Grandview team, and the defense up front really did a great job stifling that run game of Grandview, and specifically, even beyond Chuka, I really like Cody Summers, the quarterback, and what he does running the football. He stopped that too. Kind of forced Grandview, especially when Grandview was behind in points, to have to start using the passing game. So credit the defense. It was definitely a 4-week difference from what we saw, because I was on the field 4 weeks ago when Grandview was able to beat Valor. The flaws, the things that led to that loss, that all went away.
Yeah, Valor Christian loses their final 2 games of the regular season. Cherry Creek, of course, snapped that 28-game in-state win streak, and then they lose to Grandview end of the season. Many people think perhaps the Valor run is over. Not so fast. Valor Christian's back. How about this, Cory? 26-0 all-time in the postseason for Valor Christian football.
Programs never lost in the postseason. That just blows me away. Yeah, and they've got state championships in 3 different classifications. They've got 5 total. Ron Sherman does a great job. He's got a great staff around him. I credit the players, though, because they could have really gotten down on themselves, particularly when you're trying to uphold that kind of tradition that has come over the last 5 years. It's all about winning. It's all about winning state championships. You got a 2-game losing streak. That's unheard of there. Playoff time, they just kind of said, okay, boys, it's time to go, and they've looked fantastic.
Yeah, and a 2-game losing streak into the postseason, man, that's basically the definition of limping into the postseason. But then again, it's Valor Christian. A lot of credit to those players and, of course, Rod Sherman. All right, quickly, 30 seconds to go. Who wins 5A state championship? Go ahead, Marty.
I'm not going to choose because I trust both staffs, and I think that
either
staff. Well, because I wouldn't be surprised either staff designing a game plan to completely solve the other squad, and that's how much I respect them.
I've already put it out there. I think Creek's going to win this one. This is the year you've got to catch Valor. They're a little down, yet here they are in the finals in Class 5A. But I think Cherry Creek catches them, because if you don't, Dylan McCaffrey's got another year under his belt, and a lot of those guys are coming back. So I think it's Creek's year, but I wouldn't be surprised if it's 27 in a row win-wise and 6 in a row.
I think it's going to be a close game. I don't think there's any question. I'm with you, Cory. I like Cherry Creek in this game. I like what they did against Regis 2 weeks ago. It was a very good team Mark Nolan had. Like what they did against a good Ralston Valley team. I just think Cherry Creek's playing great football. And boy, the way they dominated Valor Christian the second half of their regular season meeting, I thought showed a physical nature to Creek that nobody in the state can match, even Valor Christian. All right, Cory, Marty, thanks so much. We'll see you out at Sports Authority Field next week.
It'll be very fun. We know that.
Great.
All right, we'll take a timeout, running a little bit behind here. We'll be back. We'll wrap up the program coming up next here on XSR.